Hi everyone, so it's week 3 and here are some of my takeaways. I'm going to focus mainly on the personality types chapter from Dr. Nardi's book. I want to focus on this specifically just because I know I've expressed in the past. I've always been really skeptical of personality types and the personality tests. I guess my biggest worry was that they were oversimplifying. But after reading this chapter, I really enjoyed how detailed the breakdown was of the different temperaments. And then I really enjoyed that within the different temperament types, there is another breakdown of a personality. So the breakdown that I guess I'm discussing here is that instead of getting defined by a word and then maybe a vague percentage, so I know that when I've taken like Myers-Briggs tests online in the past, it's been, for example, if I get extrovert or introvert, I get extrovert, and then it's, oh, you're roughly this percent, and it really doesn't tell me that much. But the breakdowns within Nardi's book talk about motivators and values and needs and learning methods, and I found that really helpful. So I guess I'm going to mostly talk about the catalyst type, I guess selfishly because that's the one that I would fall into, but I also want to talk a little bit about the theorist type, and then looking at the two together because how different the catalyst type and the theorist type are. It made me think of a couple questions. So I'm going to start off with the catalyst type, just to give you guys a little overview here for some of the interesting traits that I found about this personality type. I noticed a heavy significance on human interaction and the importance of relationships with others within the catalyst type. But I also found that there was, as Nardi puts it, there's a motivator for a unique identity, which I found true, but almost see a battle within this personality type, just because it relies so much on a person being defined by their relationships with others, yet it also worries about establishing a distinctive personality type for oneself. So that one I found really interesting, and I also enjoyed learning about the learning methods that would work best with this type, and I would have to say that I couldn't agree more. So Nardi says here, finding meaning in dramatic stories and themes and search for authentic human interaction. And it maybe even gave me some insight into myself. I think I mentioned in my introduction from week 1, I'm a huge film nerd. I love watching movies and watching television shows, and that's how I learn. I'm not very good at the standardized tests or memorizing, particularly tests like the theorist types, which Dr. Nardi mentions that a good learning method there is objective universal principles and, like I said, tests. I was never good at any of that. So I think this chapter gave me some insight into how I could proceed in my education the best, just because I know not only just loving, film and TV for the story, but I like to find the deeper meaning within that story. And then learning that even gave me more insight into my even more specific personality type of ENFP, because Nardi says here that this type has a talent for seeing what's not being said and voicing unspoken meanings. which when I watch a film, that's what I look for. I don't like to take it at face value. I like to find the deeper meanings and interpret it my own way. And again, I can see how I fit in this personality type, because this personality type seems to rely on emotion and first impressions and kind of that gut feeling, and then going into kind of the research mode, which is what I tend to do, not just in the films I watch or TV I watch, but also in life. I definitely have sometimes my emotions, I rely on those first, and then I find out later that I probably should do some fact checking. And then I'm going to talk about here, so the theorist type, which again I'm talking about this one because it's so different from the catalyst type. This one relies on research and examination and logic and analyzing. And I might find this one interesting too because my husband is a ENTJ. He would be considered a strategist mobilizer. Maybe that's why again, selfishly, I find these two the most interesting. But again, seeing such a difference between the theorist type and the catalyst type, it brought me to a lot of different questions. Some might be more sociological than others, but some of the questions I had, kind of relating back to week 2, we learned about all the different regions of the brain, and I wonder that region in the frontal lobe where the deductive analysis skill set is, I wonder what the brain activity would be in a theorist type versus catalyst type, since theorists tend to rely on logic first more than the catalyst. Another question I had was, Nardi mentioned this. He says here that as a theorist, they constantly examine the relationship of the means to the overall vision and goal. And with that in mind, and with catalysts desiring real, authentic human interaction, and they also kind of have an interest or a focus on morality and ethics within humanity, it got me thinking how much a theorist type truly engages in the communication and feeling aspect of their relationships with others. Maybe this isn't even defined by personality. It can't be all defined by personality, but it just kind of had the thought I got from this. Another question I had was, do catalyst types, basically, do they care almost too much what people think? And do they tend to define themselves too much by the relationship with others? I'm curious about that because I know that I constantly worry about other people's opinions. I care very, very much what people think. So I'd be curious to see again if that's all personality or what other factors play into that. And the last one would be the idea of groupthink and peer pressure, especially living in a society that is so interconnected. I wonder if the catalyst type, maybe even specifically me as an NEFP, I wonder if they're more susceptible to peer pressure and groupthink. And again, such an interactive world, I just wonder if they're more susceptible to those kinds of things than a theorist type. I guess I got thinking of this question because in a world that, when I say interconnected with globalization and with social media, with opinions being so easy to access, I'm just curious how that affects the catalyst type and the theorist type as well. Anyway, so those are my questions. Those are my thoughts. Thanks, guys.